Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in 22 degrees of Sagittarius, right after midnight on the East Coast in the US on June 13th. And on the West Coast in the US, it will be on June 12th at 9:11 p.m., which is also LA time. Now, for the next 2 weeks, we are becoming more aware of something that has been sort of in the unconscious and in the background of things. Since the new moon that was in Gemini, we've sort of been feeling that something needs to be brought back into alignment. We need to feel more of an inner balance. And the thing that's coming up right now is the Sagittarian energy is we're becoming more aware of that. And so we're trying to find the balance between the Gemini and the Sagittarian energy. Now, Gemini represents the mental processes, our thinking structures, our day-to-day mind, and our processing of information. And Sagittarius kind of goes beyond that. It explores the larger truth of things. And so Sagittarius is really about more of a wider perspective. It has to do with really experiencing something so that we can know something with our whole body, with our whole heart, not just through the mind, right? So it's really an accessing of the higher mind in a sense, exploring our higher truth of things. And it has to do with tapping into our own wisdom and into having faith that there is a higher truth to things and not just the facts. Now, realizing that we can go beyond the everyday interactions with people and what's familiar and our familiar thinking structures, that is essential really to our personal growth, to our growth processes. And these growth processes in turn play a very crucial role in how we interact with other people and how we share our knowledge and how we share ourselves in the world. And so both of them are definitely connected, and finding that balance between those two sides is very important. And of course, the full moon is always an extroverted time. It's always an emotional time. It's always a time where we're really connecting to other people and we're playing something out in our relationships so that we can find that balance. So it's really important to pay attention what occurs with other people in our lives at this time and how we're trying to find that balance between, thinking processes and finding a higher perspective of things and going more towards the bigger picture of things. What could all this mean? What could this be about? And with this full moon in particular, we're really trying to discover a lot of new possibilities. We're trying to reach outside of ourselves and trying to connect to a lot of new possibilities. Now, Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, is already retrograde at the time of the full moon and is in Cancer. And so we're really trying to pay attention more towards our inner experience and our inner dialogue, and also trying to develop more of an emotional intelligence because it's in Cancer. So it's all about our feeling. It's all about our instincts, our intuiting, nurturing ourselves, how we get nurtured in the world and how we nurture ourselves, right? And so finding a way to really pay attention to the process of our hearts and the content of our hearts, as well as the contents of our heads. So kind of, again, bringing the head and the heart together again a little bit and finding that commonality and how we can connect the two. So things that you can ask yourself at the time of the full moon or for the next 2 weeks is, how do I communicate? And of course, since Mercury is retrograde, you can ask yourself, how do I communicate with myself? What do I say to myself? Do I have an inner harsh critic? Do I blame myself? Do I judge myself? Do I call myself names? Do I label myself in some way, right? So what we also can ask ourselves, of course, is, does our own communication with ourselves, our own thinking, does that promote separation in the world and with ourselves, or does it promote connectedness and unity? And this is a very important question, I think, because very often we're not conscious of whether we are thinking in a way that promotes separating ourselves or that promotes unification and connectedness. And we may not think of it in that way, but essentially, when we are separating, when we're judging, when we're criticizing, when we're blaming, when we're labeling, that is a form of violence, because we're pushing something away, whether we do it to ourselves or whether we do it to other people or to a situation in our lives, doesn't matter. It's all the same. We're pushing something away. And so it's very important to know that even if we're not saying something out loud, even if it's an internal process, that has an effect on other people, because we are connected to everything around us. And part of that is shown with this full moon also, because Neptune is stationing at the time of the full moon, and it's making a trine to Mercury in Cancer. So we're really getting the sense that we are connected to everything around us. We are one. Everything has an impact on everything else. It's like a ripple effect, right? Now, the other thing with this full moon is Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius, is also in Cancer. It is part of a lot of different aspects at the time of the full moon. First of all, it's still making a Grand Trine to Saturn in Scorpio and Chiron in Pisces. And so there we're definitely feeling a support in terms of needing to slow down in our lives, or the ability to slow down in our lives, the ability to get in touch with our feelings, with our intuition, the ability to really go within and go deeper on a psychological level with ourselves, and really seeing, where do things come from? How do I operate? Where do I commit? Where do I focus? And also a deep healing can take place with this Grand Trine, because we really are connecting to this Chiron energy in a very committed, in a very realistic way. We're trying to get different perspectives through the Jupiter energy. And so we're really able to heal on an emotional and spiritual level with this Grand Trine. The other thing that Jupiter is doing is it's squaring the moon nodes at the time of the full moon. So this is giving us an opportunity to really connect to that Jupiter energy more fully, which has to do with self-care. It has to do with our beliefs around family and our past. It's sort of like a turning point, because it's making a square to the moon nodes, which represents our soul's journey. We're creating sort of like a shift or a change in our lives that is connected to a change in self-care, a change in our home environment, a change with our family, with the people we live with, so that we can more fully move towards this North Node in Libra, which has to do with being able to generate harmonious relationships, being able to collaborate with other people, being able to have an inner balance and an outer balance with other people in our lives. So the other thing with Jupiter also is that it's making a mutual reception with the moon in Sagittarius. So Jupiter is in Cancer, the moon is in Sagittarius, they're in each other's sign, or in each other's sign that they rule. And so that's what's called the mutual receptions. And that means that they support each other's agenda. And the agenda, of course, for both of these planets is to redefine self-care, redefine self-nurturement. What does it mean to give? What does it mean to receive? How can I do more of both? Or how can I balance the two? Now, if you show up as a giver or a helper in the world most of the time, then you may want to take a look at that and see, how can I redefine being that person? What does that mean to me? Because if I constantly give, which is really very often a big part of our conditioning and how we're raised, how society teaches us, how our parents teach us to be. In the long run, this constant giving doesn't really serve us, because we're depleting ourselves, because we're resenting other people in the long run when we're constantly just giving to them. And it's also a form of not really giving ourselves love, because we're ignoring our own needs. We're ignoring what's important to us by constantly just focusing on the other person and constantly just giving to somebody else. And of course, being a giver and being a helper is sort of like a place that we take very often, because, first of all, because we're conditioned into it, but secondly, it also feels safe, Because when we're only giving and helping, we don't need to be open and vulnerable to be able to receive from another person. And this vulnerability and this openness that receiving requires can feel very threatening to a lot of us and feels very unsafe to a lot of us. Because in childhood, when we were little and we were vulnerable and we were able to receive, or we had to receive from the adults in our lives, that wasn't always a pleasant experience. And so we got burned a lot of times, we got hurt a lot of times. And so now as an adult, that doesn't always feel like a safe place to go. So we need to look and see, how can we redefine what it means to give and receive, and how can we make it possible for ourselves to receive and be able to be vulnerable, yet feel safe in the world. Feel that we're able to take care of ourselves. And I think that this mutual reception is helping us with that, and so is the Grand Trine between Saturn, Chiron, and Jupiter. Now, the last thing that Jupiter is connected to with this full moon is the Grand Cross, which I've been talking about many times already in my previous videos. And this has been something that's been off and on happening since December 2013. And so each time this Grand Cross is taking effect, there is a stress factor and a sort of a push towards change, that we're needing to let go of long-standing issues or patterns or mindsets that are no longer serving our highest evolution. And we need to kind of move into a new way of being. And so the more we have been resisting this process, and these past couple of times that the Grand Cross has been taking place, the harder this experience gets for us. On the other hand, if we're able to get centered within ourselves, in the here and now, and in our hearts, and we're able to see it as an opportunity to let go of the old and to step into a new beingness, that is really helping us to within our evolution, and it's helping us to let go of things that are just weighing us down, that are not helping us anymore. So we need to pay attention to our resistances. What are we resisting right now? Ask yourself, is there anything in your life that you're resisting that's keeping you from moving forward in your life? And if there is anything, see what that is and what you're scared about. Why are you resisting it? Because of course we resist something because we're scared that when we're letting it go, that something worse could happen. But maybe we could entertain the possibility that if we do let go of our resistances and the things that we're holding on to, that maybe the opposite is true. Maybe something much better could happen for us, rather than something worse. And this is just something we can explore and experiment with, right? And this full moon in Sagittarius, of course, since it's all about exploration and all about, stepping into an experience and seeing how we can grow from it, this is a great opportunity for us to do that. Then the other thing that's also happening with this full moon is that we have an aspect between Venus and Saturn. Venus is in Taurus, Saturn is in Scorpio. And so there's a focus here around our relationships, what we value, how we value ourselves, our finances, the responsibilities that we have, that responsibilities that other people have towards us or that we have towards other people. Now, the Venus-Saturn was conjunct last year in September in 2013. So think back to that time, mid to late September of 2013. Think back to that time and think, what started around that time? Was there an intention that you were setting around finances, around relationships? Was there a thought that began? Was there something that occurred around that time that had you go, oh, I want to change this, or I want to do this differently, or I want to make a commitment here, right? If anything happened around that time that you started, that you could think about, then right now is the time with this opposition where we're seeing the fruits of those seeds that were planted in last year of September. And so we need to look at the fruits of our labor, and we need to see, okay, do we like what we see? Did we get the result that we wanted to get? So look at your relationships, look at your finances and see, do you like what you see? And if you don't like what you see, then what needs to change? What needs to happen next? Where do you need to maybe make a new commitment? Where do you need to make a deeper commitment? Where do you need to take responsibility with your relationships, with your finances, right? And this can be very helpful in us to really see where do we need to recommit, or where can we strengthen something that's already working. Could be a relationship, could be our finances. And if something is not working, if a relationship is not what we think it was going to be, or our finances are not where they need to be, we need to take a look and see, okay, maybe we need to rethink this, and maybe we need to make a new commitment here towards something new, towards something different. Maybe something needs to be let go of. Certain relationships maybe are not built on a strong enough foundation so that we can continue working with that relationship. Maybe it's not in alignment with us anymore, with who we are. So we need to look at all these things, and if something needs to be let go of, let it go. And if something needs to be strengthened and we need to recommit and make it stronger, maybe that's what we need to do. So really focus, responsibility, and a certain amount of maturity and realism is part of this aspect. So how can we look at that in a realistic way? And the thing that's really supporting us also with this opposition in terms of our relationships and our finances is the Chiron placement in the chart that's there at the time of the full moon, because Chiron is making an opportune aspect to Venus, allowing us to heal certain relationships or heal certain issues around self-worth and self-confidence and how we see ourselves. Also, what's happening is that Chiron is also making a square to the full moon at the time of the full moon. So we're really being invited to heal and to reconnect to ourselves, to our own humanity, to allow our own insecurities to be what they are, to embrace ourselves more fully and with love and with compassion, and to bring a lot of presence of mind to our healing process, and to not rush ourselves, to not pressure ourselves so much. So this is really part of this Chiron placement. And of course, Chiron is also stationing at the time of the full moon, which means that it's exalted, its energy is more exalted. And because Chiron is about our healing processes, and it's about us connecting to our own humanity, being able to accept and to embrace and allow ourselves to be human. That is really part of the Chiron journey. And so we're really getting an opportunity here to see ourselves as being in a process. That being human is part of a process of how we connect to ourselves in a more compassionate way, in a more loving way, and how we can allow ourselves to be human, and other people too. And when we're able to allow others to be human, it's also easier then to allow ourselves to be human. So it's sort of like a give and take again that we're doing with other people, and where we're really needing to bring this love and compassion not just to ourselves but to other people as well, and that will sort of like create a healing in turn again. Now, the other thing that's also stationing at the time of the full moon is Neptune. Neptune is stationing as well, and so because Chiron and Neptune are both stationing, we're really getting this sense of how are we all interconnected? How are we all related? On an energetic level, on an emotional level, on an unconscious level. There are all these vibrations that go through the space, through the universe. They all connect each one of us. And so that means that when we're doing something, when we're thinking something, when we're doing something to ourselves, when we're thinking something about ourselves, it affects not just us, it affects the whole world. It affects everyone around us. And so being able to notice that and to see that and to create more compassion towards that process, that can be really valuable and very beautiful as well. And so one thing that I recommend with, the Chiron station and with the Neptune station is that we really tap more into our inner experience, but also to maybe experiment with something called beginner's mind, which is an expression that I hear a lot in my yoga practices. And I find it really helpful because it is sort of when we encounter life, when we encounter another person, a situation, when we deal with ourselves, to come from a place where we encounter everything like as if we've encountered it for the very first time. And that can be really beautiful and really wonderful because we are creating a very open experience when we do that. We create an open heart, an open mind. We are coming from this place of curiosity rather from a place of, putting it into a particular box, because it's always been in that box and we already know this, or yeah, we've done this, so nothing new can happen from that. But by really just being open and allowing everything to be new and to just see what happens. And I want to invite you to do this for the next 2 weeks as much as you can, and then just share your experiences with everyone through my YouTube channel, through Facebook, through my Facebook fan page, through Twitter. Feel free to share about what it was like to come from beginner's mind and what that experience was all about, because the Sagittarian energy is about experience, right? And then sharing that is the Gemini energy. So if we can do that all together, we may learn something from each other. We may heal each other. We may connect on a new, deeper level with each other. And that can be a really beautiful thing. So I want to invite all of us to do that. And then the other thing that I want to say is, the last thing I want to say is that trust very often plays a big role in how we do life and how we do things in life and how we explore ourselves and our own healing process as well. And I just want to invite you to see if you can maybe, for this next 2 weeks, see if you can trust your inner process. See if you can trust that the universe is bringing things to you that are of value, that are supporting you. And I know that this is difficult sometimes because we're so conditioned not to trust. Society teaches us not to trust. The media, our upbringing, our families, the people in our lives, it's hard for us to trust ourselves a lot of times, So being able to allow ourselves to open up a little bit more and to trust, start with yourself. Start with trusting your own inner process. Start with trusting yourself. And then go from there. You don't have to do it all in one go. And you also don't have to trust something if you feel that it's that you absolutely don't want to. That's fine too. Really also see where your boundaries are with that as well. But start with yourself because, you yourself know, where your own boundaries are and see if you can trust yourself a little bit more. And that could be a really wonderful thing. So feel free to share, via YouTube, via Facebook fan page, via Twitter, and feel free to share. And just, if you share via Twitter, just make it @Sonja Francis. If you share via Facebook fan page, go to AstrologerCoach.Sonja Francis. That's my Facebook fan page. And if you share on YouTube, then just click below the video and just share on YouTube. And I will also be responding to all of you if you're sharing with me, because I love to connect with all of you as well. Now, if you do have any personal or planets in 20 to 24 degrees of Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces, so if you have the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the rising sign, the ascendant, the midheaven, or the career point, in those degrees and those signs, you definitely will feel the full moon more strongly. But of course, all of us will feel the Chiron station. All of us will feel the Neptune station. All of us are feeling the Grand Cross somewhere in our chart, and the Grand Trine as well. So all of us are feeling these energies somewhere in our chart, right? So feel free to share, feel free to re-listen to the video, because I know that was a lot of information and you may need to digest this information, let it sink in a little bit, maybe re-listen to the video a second time. And then share what's your experience around trust, share what's your experience around beginner's mind, what's your experience around your thinking processes, your inner processes, your psychological processes, everything that you feel worth sharing that's connected to this full moon energy. All right. So have a fantastic full moon. Remember, it's an extroverted time. It's an emotional time. It's a relationship time. We're seeking balance. So as best as you can, seek your balance within and have a fantastic full moon. And I will be back really soon. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.